Anti-Semitism continues to be a problem here in New Jersey. The Anti-Defamation League tracks the number of anti-Semitic incidents each year, and preliminary data shows more than 3,300 reported incidents nationally in 2025, and New Jersey's been among the states topping the list in those reports. The numbers have risen dramatically since the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack in Israel. Now, leaders of the Jewish community here have had to deal with the increased risks at their temples and in their communities, leading to increased spending on security. I'm joined now by Rabbi Daniel Cohen from Temple Sharei Tefillo, Israel in South Orange. Rabbi, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
What are you seeing and hearing from members of your community when it comes to reports of anti-Semitism?
Overall, the national statistics are really what are being reflected pretty much everywhere, and we are seeing this rapid rise. It was happening already before October 7, 2023. We were already seeing the numbers increasing, but obviously it's become significantly worse since then. And I don't think there's any synagogue or any Jewish institution that hasn't been impacted by this and hasn't had to really step back and take a real look at how we do things and what we're doing in order to keep our community as safe as possible.
When we talk about
challenging times.
When we talk about reported incidents, what types of things are you hearing? What types of things are happening when it comes to either harassment or actual attacks?
I mean, we're hearing about the harassment. We're hearing about hateful graffiti. We're hearing online. I see disgusting things all the time, but that's online. If people want to talk and be hateful among themselves, I guess they get to do that. But we're also seeing the attack in Michigan. We're seeing people in New York at increasing numbers, who, especially those who are identifiably Jewish, wearing a kippah, a yarmulke, something like that, who are being attacked. I think it has put everyone a little bit on edge and has certainly made us look at things differently than we have. I think it's taking all different forms. I think the other thing you said, which is a really important distinction that you made, which is reported incidents. The reported incidents have gone up tremendously. You know, the Jewish community is 2% of the American population. You wouldn't necessarily know that in northern New Jersey here, but we're 2% of the population, and the Jewish community accounts for 60 to 70% of religiously based hate crimes over the last few years. That is astounding and shocking, and those are the reported incidents. I suspect it's significantly higher than that, obviously.
Right. People afraid to report or just choosing not to. Synagogues across the state, we know, have had to step up security, especially during the High Holy Week, which we just passed. Have you had to take extra measures to ensure safety for your congregation?
So our high holidays are in the fall, and then we just had Passover. And for any time we have a large number of people, we certainly want to pay attention to that. We have absolutely changed how we do things. I don't think there's any synagogue or Jewish institution that hasn't. But as I said before, we started actually making the changes and addressing how we do things back before the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. We saw the numbers rising, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that is reasonable to do to keep our community safe. The good news for us is that local law enforcement has been fantastic. The federal law enforcement has been superb. And even our Greater Metro West Federation, which is the umbrella for the Jewish community here in my part of New Jersey, our security personnel have been terrific in allowing us to consult and constantly taking a look at what we're doing. So we have radically changed what we've done, but it's been incremental over the last few years. And we are constantly looking to say, what else can we do? What else should we do? And if there's something that we should do, we're finding a way to do it, because that's our number one priority right now, is making sure that our community is safe.
Yeah, and forgive my misstatement about the timing of the High Holy Days. I know there have been reports, for one example, of a synagogue that had to spend something around $500,000 over the course of a few years in security measures. I would imagine that there's a burden that comes with this, not just emotionally, but fiscally. And I know you said you're working with partners, but have you had to take on some burden there financially as well?
I can't go into details, but I can simply say yes. I don't think there's any synagogue that has not had to change what they're doing, has not had to increase their spending on security. To the point of, at this point, I think it's about 15% of most organizations. That's across the board. A recent study that I looked at said about 15% of institutional spending is going to security. And that's the problem, right? That's the problem, is not only that we have to spend the money, But what no one's really talking about is the fact that we have to in the first place. What other community in the country has to spend so significantly on security in the way that we're having to in the Jewish community? And that, for me, is the real story, the real problem. And that, for me, is what people should be screaming about. And we should be, it's a 5-alarm fire right now. But the thing is, the Jewish community is the canary in the coal mine. Inevitably, when hate turns on the Jewish community, it doesn't stop there. Hate is a cancer. Bias is a cancer, and it metastasizes, and it's not going to stop with the Jewish community. So this is not a Jewish issue, Jewish problem. This is an American problem right now, and I don't think it's being taken seriously enough.
Yeah, you raise a great point there. I know that there are members of the Jewish community pushing for some funding down on Capitol Hill. There are two bills in particular. One is the Pray Safe Act and one is the Sacred Act. They really allow more access to federal funding to safeguard these faith institutions. One, do you support that?
So I have long been an absolute advocate of the separation of church and state. And so historically, I would not have wanted to apply for government grants. At this point in time, I am grateful that the federal security grant program is there, that the national security grant program is there. I am grateful for it, and I believe every synagogue and Jewish institution should actually take advantage of it. The federal government has been terrific. Just to give you some numbers, I did a quick look. In 2007, that program spent $24 million. It increased significantly for the first time in 2021. In 2026, it was up to $300 million. So that is a tenfold increase in 10 years. And yet it is not nearly enough to cover the security needs for all Jewish institutions. So the federal government has been terrific, but it's not nearly enough, and we need a lot more support from the federal government. But also, that deals with the symptom of this hate.
Yeah.
The other piece, as I was saying before, that I'm hoping the conversation starts to focus on is how do we address the hate in the first place? Because again, it's not a Jewish issue, it's an American issue.
I'm going to do something that may not be fair, but in just a few seconds that's left, how do we address the hate in the first place?
Relationships first and foremost. I think when we get to know people, I also think leadership. For example, after October 7th, when the demonstrations on some campuses started on October 7th, 2023, before Israel even retaliated, and we saw the demonstrations on campus growing, Ben Sass was the new president of the University of Florida, and he made a clear statement: we are not going to accept this on our campus. Freedom of speech is important, but not freedom of ugliness, freedom of threat, freedom of divisiveness, none of that is going to be accepted. And they had far fewer problems. I think there is conversation on the ground. I think it takes leadership in the communities, but I think it also takes leadership from our elected officials in our towns, who have been way too slow to step up, in our school districts, who I've worked extensively with our school district, and they have been terrific, but it took time for them to get there. And ultimately, I think it's a matter of leadership, and we need to see more of it and more focusing on the larger issue, not just the specifics of a synagogue or the Jewish community, but hate in general in America and the tolerance we have for it, that we're seeing acceptance in America for all sorts of ugliness that is unacceptable.
All right, we have to leave it there, but I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Rabbi Daniel Cohen, thank you so much.
Thank you.